Hello, Internet! Welcome to episode 194 of the Assorted Calibers podcast. The Second Amendment podcast is a little bit for everyone. I'm Weer'd, and joining me tonight, as usual, is the lovely Aaron Paulette.
Dude, get a cough drop or something. You sound scratchy as hell.
I mean, I am not feeling great. But I think I'm feeling well enough to slug through this show. I have a fine cup of herbal tea, and I've got my PJs on, and I've got my fuzzy blankie.
All right, we'll do something to lubricate that because it's sounding a little bit gravelly there.
Ah, there. So how is that? Celestial seasoning sleepy time.
It doesn't sound any better, to be honest.
Well, we'll see. We'll see where it goes.
But enough of that. We're also joined by the usual gang of idiots, by which I mean David and Oddball.
Hello. Idiot number one
Hey.
reporting in.
I guess that makes me idiot number 2.
Try harder.
Yes, we are having an ACP roundtable because I think there's enough odd stuff in the news going through that I think we can make a show. What do you guys think?
As long as we follow my rule and we don't talk about that one thing.
I am fine with that.
Oh, good.
Yeah, that's fine.
Which one thing is that? Type it in chat so I know.
The slap heard around the world.
Oh, okay. I'll just say that's oddly enough, people that are professional actors and are designed to fool people in what they are thinking, might have made that look such because, well, none of us here watch the Oscars, and I am
Apparently
really
most of the country doesn't either.
See, you're already talking about it, and I asked you not to.
Yes. Either way, it was fake. Nobody watched the show. Now some people are watching the show and talking about it, and
you're one of them after Aaron has requested we not twice.
Okay.
So shut your frickin' pie hole.
Okay. Well, how is everybody doing this fine evening? Obviously, Aaron is mad at me.
With reason.
Yes.
Business as usual, basically. Once again, you make everything awful.
I try. I try. And David, you returned home safely?
As far as I know. I mean, I'm home and I feel relatively safe. The cats have forgiven us for being away for...
The cats noticed?
Flynn, definitely.
Okay.
He's our big mushy boy.
Mushy boy.
I mean, some cats, it's like, as long as you leave them enough food and water, it's like, you were gone.
That was Aria. We actually, after we'd been home for a few hours, we started searching for her because we had not seen her at all. And we're looking in all the hiding places that we can figure out. And then suddenly she appeared in the middle of the dining room, not near any hiding place.
Suddenly, a wild Xander appears.
Yes.
Hey, Xander!
Hi.
An exhausted Xander who deserves a good rest.
Yeah. Oh, ow. I just took a shower because Weer'd didn't want me stinking up the bed.
Aw.
I mean, it's true. It's good to go to bed clean.
At least physically clean.
There are some stains that no amount of washing can remove.
Yeah, I'm sure the images of some of the stuff you've had to deal with on the farm are stains that will...
On the farm? I've been on the internet.
Ew.
That's on the farm the worst thing that you're going to get is a tsunami of poop water.
No, that's not the worst.
So hey, speaking of a tsunami of poop water, let's talk about the latest ATF ruling.
Yes.
Yeah, for those of us who didn't see this coming, the ATF has declared forced reset triggers machine guns. And I know you guys are just itching to talk about it, so let me get this out of the way, and then you can blather. What I think is going to be interesting is that Rare Breed, quite specifically, has a former ATF agent either on contract or on the payroll, and he has testified how this isn't a machine gun. And I believe Weer'd were the ones who had all their files in their lawyer's office to begin with. In other words, they were expecting this, and they fully expect there's going to be a fight. And I'm looking forward to the legal ramifications of this. I mean, I don't know if Weer'd's going to win because it's against the government, but they at least came prepared.
Yes, they did, as you said, Aaron. They did have basically they broke off a separate company and listed the place of business as their lawyer's office. So they were not expecting this. I think they were courting this.
But the point being is that when
Yeah.
the ATF showed up to raid them or request documents or whatever, it was their lawyer's office, and the lawyer basically said, "Yeah, client confidentiality. Go away and come back with the warrant."
Yep.
And
And yeah, they did have an ATF agent, at least, I think they had 2 as consultants for the design.
That's the
But on
word I
other
was
hand-
trying to say. Consultant, not on
Okay.
contract. But yeah.
But also, this is the same ATF that declared a bump stock a machine gun, a shoelace a machine gun,
Mhm.
and what was the other one?
well, and also there was the whole not lightning leak.
Not lightning.
Yeah, the card.
The first version of the bump stock.
Yes, the
The Akins accelerator.
Akins
Yes, the accelerator. Where the ATF said, "Oh yeah, no, that's totally not a machine gun. You can make those." And then he ramped up production and started selling them.
He put
At which
together a
point-
production facility. He funded all of that out of his pocket.
Right. At which point the ATF said, "Oh
Just kidding.
no, we changed our mind. You have to destroy all of them, and no, we're not going to give you any sort of monetary
No
compensation
for you. No.
And we don't care that you have a letter from us saying that this is totally legit and legal."
Yeah, that letter's old. The new letter that says no is new.
Yeah.
Because what is that line from Whose Line Is It Anyway?
Where the rules are made up and the points don't matter?
Yes, that's the one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that is the ATF all.
Yes, the ATF. Aren't they the ones that will burn down a bunch of women and children and shoot women and children?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, but that was to save them.
In order to save them.
Yes. But yeah, the ATF. I mean, they're
And there are stories older than that, Xander, going back decades.
yeah.
Oh,
There is reason why you want to have some ability for the regulation for the regulatory organization to be able to clarify and define rules. But the ATF is a wonderful example of how that can go horribly, horribly wrong.
It's
And-
called
They are an unregulated regulatory agency.
it's called
Yeah.
Chevron deference, and we need to kill it.
Yes.
Mhm.
With fire.
The ATF is what Mara Healy wants to be when she grows up.
Oh, God. Isn't that true?
Yeah.
Oh, right now she's running for governor of Massachusetts.
I mean, she's already getting away with it's illegal if I tell you it's illegal, and
But I'm not going
Right.
to tell you unless I want to make an example.
I mean, she's
Yeah.
already gotten away with that. This Maryland assault weapons case may, in fact, well, it's a slightly higher risk for a much higher reward because Maryland has has actually the same assault weapons ban as Massachusetts. They just said during the federal assault weapons ban, they said, "Oh, this might sunset. Quick, let's make it state law. So if the pro-gun people get rid of this national law, at least it'll stay the law in the state of Maryland." And so,
New York did the same thing in 2000.
yeah, but I think New
Sure.
York went a little further after that.
Yeah, that was the SAFE Act.
Yeah.
In 2013.
Well, there was also the bit where they confiscated SKS rifles. I forget what exactly happened there.
Not that I recall.
Okay. Well, I'll feed you a story and then you can make me a segment. But
Because I owned an SKS until shortly before we moved out of New York in 2017.
yeah. But either way,
Yeah.
the Maryland case if it goes in our favor, which there's no guarantee that it will, unfortunately, but if it goes in our favor, it will likely strike down Massachusetts assault weapons ban because it is more strict than theirs. But
so
again,
what's the Maryland case?
I believe it's just I haven't actually, I don't know the case off the top of my head, but it's one of those. It hasn't been, the Supreme Court hasn't agreed to hear it just yet. But essentially, the group is suing Maryland for saying that their assault weapons ban is unconstitutional.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm going to guess that the Supreme Court isn't going to touch that.
I don't know.
Probably not.
I don't know. It will rein in a
Here-
lot of the neener, we don't care what Heller says crap. But
Oh, yeah. But,
Yeah, but
the Supreme
have to-
Court isn't going to touch it because that would actually require them rocking the boat.
yeah, well, that's
Yeah,
depressing.
if they had made Alito Chief Justice,
Mm-hmm.
is it Alito?
I
think it was Alito when he was a lower level judge, made a statement against the NFA.
Mm-hmm.
And they called him Machine Gun Alito. It's the same.
Well,
And if he'd been made Chief Justice, the Supreme Court would have probably taken a number more Second Amendment cases.
and David, if you wouldn't mind, have you actually seen how these force reset triggers work?
I haven't seen a schematic. I've read a description.
Yeah, because
So-
you are by far probably the most AR building of all of us.
Hi. Yes,
So
I'm
I just
almost done with another one.
yeah I didn't know how much information you had on this on this trigger pack.
My understanding is that there is an extension on the trigger bar. Now, in the AR, the trigger bar is a horizontal bar just inside the bottom of the lower receiver. The trigger extends below that. And as you pull the trigger, it tips back and forth slightly. So my understanding is that there is a vertical extension on some portion of the trigger bar so that when the bolt comes back, it forces, through that simple lever action, forces the trigger forward, therefore the trigger bar tips up at the front, engaging the sear on the hammer. Hammer can't fall until the trigger is pulled again. You keep constant pressure when the bolt then goes forward and that bar is no longer holding the trigger in battery, it's going to trip the sear and drop the hammer.
Mm-hmm.
So technically, from a mechanical standpoint, there is a separate activation of the trigger each time the bolt goes into battery.
It's very similar to a bump stock, but it is dealing with the bolt actually physically resetting the trigger
Correct.
and allowing you to pull it again with constant pressure instead of needing to relax and then tighten the trigger again.
Or perhaps crank operated firearm where the crank heats.
The old Hellfire system.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
those, as far as I know, the Hellfire system is still considered legal.
It is still considered legal, though most of the states, like Massachusetts, has a bump stock ban, and trigger cranks were added onto that. They essentially went through and declared anything that simulates full auto fire in a gun or facilitates bump firing.
So
I was thinking the original Gatling design.
which the Hellfire was
Yeah.
meant to emulate. But so weird. What you're saying is that the state of Massachusetts, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, has banned Jerry Mikulek from entering their state.
Thankfully, Smith & Wesson has moved to Tennessee.
Yes, I know.
Uh,
They've already broken ground, and they're saying that production will begin next year.
I mean, that's awesome. I can't blame them. So yeah, either way, this will be very interesting. They have been prepared for a fight. Like I guarantee, all of they have the start of their legal defense already spooled up because they know that they were going to get attacked. They were in a fortified position.
Yeah, like I said,
one.
they weren't prepared for an attack. They were courting an attack.
Correct. This is
It's the military equivalent of having a small, weak force run away from your
Mhm.
enemy in what looks like a rout, and then suddenly the enemy realizes they are surrounded by people in entrenched positions with artillery.
yeah.
That's bait.
So yeah. Oh, go
Pardon?
ahead.
I was quoting Fury Road. That's bait.
as bait.
Mhm.
Correct.
Yeah,
Mhm.
this is these guys are goddamn heroes. Let's not mince words. Like
Right.
they are literally poking the bear in what they think
They
is.
are the cattle prodding the bear.
Yeah, in what they think is a winnable situation, so that they can get a so they can get a case forward and actually get the ATF to declare this, because this is all just jive. Like the ATF says that it's illegal because it isn't. David mentioned the shoelace. There was that a Mini 14?
I believe it was a Mini 14. Someone drilled a hole in the charging handle. It's a reciprocating charging handle.
Mm-hmm.
Ran the shoelace back behind the trigger guard and then around the trigger, so that when the bolt slammed all the way forward, it put enough tension on the shoelace to pull the trigger. So you would basically drop the bolt, release the bolt for the charging handle to go forward, and the gun would fire until it was empty or jammed.
Well, essentially, they created a secondary trigger for the gun, because the end of the shoelace had a key ring on it, and
which
so
was around the trigger. Yeah.
if you pulled the trigger, it would fire just a single shot. But if you pulled the key ring, it would fire and then force reset, very similar to this. And interestingly enough, yes, that shoelace has a piece of sheet metal with a serial number on it because it is a registered auto sear, essentially.
Yeah. And actually, your description was a little off, because the keyring would be, or the shoelace would be detached from the trigger to fire normally.
Oh, okay.
But as soon as that
right.
trigger and shoelace were connected, the bolt going into battery pulled the trigger.
Okay, yeah. And so essentially that shoelace became a registered auto sear. It is a registered auto sear. But at the same time, the ATF, depending on when they were asked on occasion, were told that no, that was not a machine gun. We never registered as a machine gun. You're foolish.
Yes.
So
who are you going to believe, us or your lying eyes?
Exactly. So,
or court documents.
Yeah.
Your lying eyes. You have to read them.
Yeah. So these guys are horrendously dishonest, and they changed their mind. I mean, we the whole like pistol brace thing where it's illegal, it's legal, it's a short-barreled rifle, it's a pistol, it's a, you can shoot it, but the moment you touch it to your shoulder, it's a problem. And
Yep.
I think
I've read stories like this that date back to the 70s.
Mm-hmm.
So this is absolutely nothing new, because remember how the ATF started off, who their original employees were?
Mm-hmm.
They were the prohibition moonshiners, or the prohibition revenuers going after moonshiners. And those guys were pretty much above the law during the life of the Volstead Act.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
When the Volstead Act disappeared, ATF basically was formed, Gun Control Act of 1934, and then 30, Federal Firearms Act. And that is the culture of that organization. And just like we've talked about how we don't know if the NRA can be fixed, I don't think the ATF can be fixed. I think that the rot is inherently built into the structure.
Well, again, Aaron's key point is the Chevron deference is this first up. So let us note the irony that a friggin' trigger pack is considered a machine gun. This is not even a machine gun receiver. This is a part of a gun, and you can assemble the gun without this part and it'll shoot just fine. And you place this part in there and it will, I mean, it won't fire full auto. This is again simulated full auto. The trigger is resetting and you are pulling the trigger.
Yeah. It's cyclic manual fire.
Yes. It's just very, very, very efficient.
Now, I don't recall the HK trigger packs for like the G3 and the MP5.
Mm-hmm.
They have semi-auto and full auto trigger packs.
Yes.
Are the full auto trigger packs required to be registered with the ATF?
If you want to transfer them, yes.
Okay, so this is not a completely foreign concept.
No.
They're just stretching it to something that is mechanically not at all the same.
Correct.
They need to prove that they are worth a budget increase.
And they got a lot of grief for burning down buildings full of children.
All I have to say is that I hope the folks who work for Rare Breed don't have pets.
Oh God.
Yeah.
Or kids.
Well, and honestly, and yes, I've taken heat for saying this before, but I'm afraid that they are going to be able to successfully argue that the difference between between these trigger packs and real deal full auto is so so slim that it doesn't make a difference.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, and again, the bump stock ban still stands for right now, though I believe there's some challenges for that.
Yeah,
But
there are challenges, but who knows when and how far they'll get.
Yeah,
and frankly, I see the bump stocks as being easier to defend against. As no, that's not a machine gun part than the trigger reset.
Well, I know Adam Kraut from the Gun Collective. They got a Phantom slow-mo camera and took a video of he fired a couple of shots in with the bump stock locked, and then unlocked the bump stock and dumped a mag, and had the Phantom camera focused on it was focused on his finger and the ejection port, so you could see the bolt cycling, and you could see the trigger and the stock cycling, and you could see his finger come completely off the trigger before every shot.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I mean, it's very similar to when those videos that you see online of some idiot who hands a fairly green shooter a Smith & Wesson 500 Magnum.
Oh yeah,
and the gun recoils the gun recoils in their hand so hard that it pushes their finger completely off the trigger, resets the trigger, and then they are still intentionally gripping the gun, and
they're gripping
double.
it harder for the feeling of loss of control. But I had a question. Right. Oddball, you said that you thought the forced reset trigger would be more difficult challenge to overcome?
Yes, for us to defend that. No, that's not a machine gun. Correct.
But it doesn't meet the legal definition of a machine gun. The trigger is being forcibly reset after each shot.
The problem is the legal definition of a machine gun is whatever the ATF says it is.
Mm-hmm.
That's true, but I'm just
what you can convince a court, be that a judge or a jury, to believe.
Well, it's their court and their judge unless it gets up to the Supremes.
Right, and there's the thing
like the IRS.
And there's the thing of with the big thing with me is with the bump stock, if you're not pushing forward on the
forend
of the rifle, and you pull your finger all the way back and keep pulling back, it fires one shot.
Mm-hmm.
If you, as the mechanical action of pulling your finger back and continue with the same amount of pressure backwards with one of these force reset triggers, it keeps firing.
Well, with the force reset trigger, my understanding, again, I haven't had a chance to look at one yet, is if you do a gentle trigger pull, you actually feel the slap of the trigger pushing your finger forward.
Okay, so
unless you are applying more than required pressure, it's going to be a single shot.
Right, but that's not in a lot of people's minds. That's not a whole heck of a lot different than the Dyer Oggs 2-stage trigger,
or many of the Italians 2-stage.
Yeah, where you pull back some and it fires once, you pull back all the way and it goes full auto.
Yeah, I can understand that from the perspective, but from a mechanical and legal standpoint, it is clearly not machine gun.
Mm-hmm.
As Xander said, however, that doesn't matter.
Well, and that's when you get into the fine bits of, because I believe that's when you get into the fine bits of how exactly you define one action on the part of the operator.
I don't know if the one action element is actually written into the law. I have to take another look at what the actual legal definition.
The ATF has actually changed it now to one function of the trigger, I believe. Let me double check it.
Oh, that makes the force reset trigger even less a machine, because you pull the trigger, the gun fires. That's one action of the mechanism.
Yeah, by a single function of the trigger.
Yeah, by a
Right.
single function of the trigger.
Well, to get 2 consecutive shots, there are 3 functions of the trigger: pull, the force reset, and then the pull again.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And,
So from that definition, it's even less a machine gun than.
I mean, Ian McKellen said it best with the person who designed this trigger very much was designing it as a way to make it a very, very fortified legal challenge against various bump firing bans.
right. And David, I want to make clear that I understand what you're saying, and I agree with you.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I didn't think you would disagree.
But I'm looking at this from the other side and seeing what their arguments are, and or arguments would be, and quite frankly, how John Q. Public, who aren't firearm geeks, would look at it.
Right.
Yep.
And
Okay.
that's why.
Speaking of
Andrew?
forced resets, I need to tap out for the night.
All right.
Okay,
Thanks
well,
for
thanks for
stepping
joining
in,
us.
Tanner.
Yep.
Sleep-
Always good to talk with y'all.
Sleep well.
Don't know about that after this discussion, but thanks.
I mean, if you'd stayed for one
yeah.
more thing,
Yeah.
I could make it
Yeah,
fun.
actually, yeah, Xander, have you seen the next story?
No, I haven't even checked the show notes, so I haven't.
I got you.
That's
Well,
fine.
you'll
Okay.
hear this in a couple days.
All right. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Yeah, I was actually for a palate cleanser was going to go to something a little different.
I'm gonna take a shower tonight. Shut up.
Don't know.
Who wants to talk about this next one?
We talking about Lithuania?
We are talking about Lithuania.
How do you boys feel about Lithuania?
They're following the Swift model, basically.
Yeah, so Lithuania is looking at what happened in Ukraine and is going, yeah. We think we're gonna let our citizens keep and bear arms, and if you are one of this particular category, you can keep automatic guns.
Mhm.
And so the Lithuanian parliament has voted to allow members of the Riflemen's Unit, which is a civilian paramilitary organization, and also volunteer soldiers. I'm not entirely sure what they mean by that, but so anyway, members of the professional military, we know what that means. Volunteer soldiers, whatever that means, and members of the Riflemen's Union. I'd need to investigate on that, but it kind of sounds like some sort of sporting organization. But they are allowed to acquire and keep at home what's known as A category weapons and ammunition. I haven't looked up what this means, but just based on context, it really sounds like what people would consider assault rifles.
Dun, dun, dun.
Legitimate assault rifles, not
Yes.
assault weapons.
Yes.
Assault rifles.
Oh, I
Rifles?
misread that. I thought it was salt and pepper rifles.
Oh.
But yes, the kind of thing that that a well-equipped infantryman would have.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, this is awesome, and this is exactly what we've been noting from the conflict in Ukraine, is that they have been highly effective, in part because it appears that the Russians are having a whole lot of logistical problems with their equipment and
Mhm.
possibly their tactics, but also that they were quick to distribute white weapons to the citizenry, so that essentially there would be a rifle behind every blade of grass in Ukraine. But the one sad part about that is that a lot of these people that were getting issued AKs, this is the first time that they have ever handled or fired one, and now they
Yeah.
have a full auto AK in their hands. And
giggling in their heads.
yes, and orders to go kill Russians. So
That
I
is definitely an issue, and it goes back to something that we've discussed numerous times in various roundtables and mag dumps. Is if I was emperor for a day kind of thing. Every school child at a young age would go through the Eddie Eagle program, and then every year thereafter they would build on that from unloading and showing clear, proper handling, use of sights, etc. By the time they graduated high school, they would have full knowledge on how to safely handle long arms and handguns. Then you give them the M16.
That was what I was originally saying, is that I originally was saying my overall philosophy is that elementary school is Eddie Eagle, is don't touch guns. Guns are something to be respected, and find an adult. Don't play with them. They're not toys. Very similar to don't let anyone touch you in your bathing suit area. This is just generally not
further along. If someone touches you in your bathing suit area that you don't like, put a knife in them.
Well, then you get to middle school. You tell an adult and let the adult put a knife in them.
I was going to go with the analogy of don't play with matches, but
yeah, just so you know, touch my daughter and see what happens. But
fudge around and find out.
Yes, or maybe you wouldn't find out. Maybe you wouldn't realize what had happened to you by the time I was done. But either way, once you get to middle school, so now you're dealing with teenage kids. Now you're being taught the basic rules of gun safety. Don't point it at anybody, finger off the trigger, and the various kinds of firearms and how they work. And all of this so far up to this point, at no point is a live firearm even necessary. You can do it with pictures, and you can do it with inert training guns. Then once you get to high school, essentially the idea of you must be proficient in, pistol, shotgun, and rifle was going through. And honestly speaking, this nonsense in Russia and Ukraine is really getting me to say, you know what, before you can get your high school diploma, you've got to keep a mag of ammo on rock and roll in a target, because I'm there's
with exemptions for either conscientious objectors or people with disabilities.
Yeah, I mean that's perfectly reasonable. I'm willing to carve that out, but the idea that everybody who graduates high school at least will be a very, very, very basic rifleman, in the idea that, no, we're not training to be soldiers. We're not saying there needs to be boot camp. They need to be like a private first class. No, they need to be, they just need to be proficient enough that in the event that things go bad and people are invading, they can pick up guns off the battlefield and be competent with them, and or be handed out guns by the government saying, congratulations, you're part of the unorganized militia. Here's your, here's your rifle if you don't already have one. And it's not just figure it out. It is, you should already be competent enough that you can operate this safely and effectively.
Yeah, and one of the other aspects of this that I've been seeing is apparently the EU is pooping their pantaloons, because their easternmost members are looking at what's happening in Ukraine, and they're either they already have or they are looking at following a Lithuanian style plan, because they were part of the Soviet Union once. They don't want to do it again. So that's going to be interesting in the next decade.
The interesting thing that's going on here, and we'll actually be interested to see the Czech Republic, and I'm not sure the difference in the gun laws between the Czech Republic and Slovakia. I know the Czech Republic and formerly Czechoslovakia was like surprisingly permittent to gun rights. Like you could get a concealed carry permit without too much effort in the Czech Republic. I don't know. I don't know about Slovakia. I would assume it's probably pretty close, just because until very recently they were one country. And
I believe so. I think it's more a matter of degree than type, but I don't know the actual.
Yeah,
need to look them up.
So
just things that I've read in passing.
since they are so gun friendly, they have the Warsaw Pact history in them, and they have that proximity to Russia. I wouldn't be surprised if the Czech Republic and or Slovakia turn around and say, you know what, let's also lift our restrictions on full auto weapons and make it easier for average citizens to go through and get full military weapons in the event that the Ruskies start rolling armor into us.
Or anybody else.
Let's see what Aaron Paulette found. Let's see. Okay. Yep.
Yeah. Well, you guys were talking. I did some research and pulled up some links. I mean, admittedly, it's Wikipedia, but
the information that you've got on
Slovakia is similar to California. So, yeah.
So they went full transy, whereas the Czechs kept it.
I think the Czechs aren't too far off in that sense, in that the big deal is just you need to have a European style gun permit system where it's a lot of scrutiny. Just if you apply for the highest one, it's also a concealed carry permit. It's very similar to Massachusetts, if you will.
Well, I'm looking at the link to the Slovakia, and a concealed carry license is only issued if the police deem a sufficient justification.
Mm-hmm.
Because of that issue, this license may issue in practice and may vary across Slovakia by stance of it. It is kind of similar to California, as I said.
Mm-hmm.
Some departments are almost shall issue, others need true sufficient reason. Only about 2% of the adult population hold. There is an exception for non-repeating muzzle-loaded firearms, which may be purchased without a license. Slovakia.
Yep.
But yeah, Czech Republic looks a lot better.
Yeah.
I mean, when I did my Candlelight Vigil to counteract the anti-gunners, and they got really pissed off at me for it. One of the first people that submitted a picture of their carry gun and a candle was a guy from the Czech Republic, and I believe, if I remember correctly, it was a Glock, which I found hilarious. On the wait, guys, you guys make really, really good pistols right there. Why wouldn't you use a CZ75?
So there's a picture here that says gun safes for visitors at a Czech courthouse. Gun safes for civilian firearms at a courthouse in Prague. It is forbidden to carry any weapons within a courthouse. Visitors can leave their firearms at gun safes upon entry before undergoing an airport-style security check. I like that.
And barrel for dry firing for civilians at a police station in Czech Republic. After unloading, a person aims the firearm into the barrel and dry fires. So they can bring their gun into the police station, they just have to unload it and prove unloaded. I also noticed there's another picture has the caption, field strip is usually required to demonstrate safe handling.
Mm-hmm.
Apart from gun legislation, the theoretical part of the exam focuses also on first aid.
Nice.
I would like to see more of that.
Mm-hmm.
That's a pet peeve about... As a firearms instructor, I definitely push getting training and getting instruction, but it should not be all gun. As Aaron, you've said on more than one occasion, you're much more likely to need a tourniquet than a gun.
Mm-hmm.
And I all too often, well, if I know how to shoot, I don't have to worry with the rest of that stuff. No, that's not how that works. That's not how any of this works.
That's how the better to be lucky than good.
Yeah. No.
Yeah.
So it looks like the Czech Republic is not as good as Tennessee, but better than Massachusetts, perhaps.
Mm-hmm. I mean, Slovakia may issue, and Czech Republic back in 95 shall issue concealed carry. I posted a picture. About the worst thing I can say about them is that they do appear to require registration.
Yeah, gun licenses may be obtained in a way similar to a driving license by passing a gun proficiency exam, medical examination, and having a clean criminal record. Now, what's really neat is this part. Unlike in most other European countries, the Czech gun legislation also permits a citizen to carry a concealed weapon for self-defense and 252,000 out of the 309,000 gun license holders have a concealed carry permit. That's a good percentage.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's a small fraction of the population of the country, but even in the U.S., in a lot of even more permissive states, the number of people with carry licenses is a small percent.
They are also smack dab in the middle of Europe, which makes it very, very surprising, because you just naturally assume that, oh, it's Europe. You pretty much can't own guns, and if you can own guns, it's mostly about ducks and deer.
Yeah. Well, if I remember correctly, when the Czech Republic, I think it was asked to join the EU, and they were told that they would have to change their gun laws to match the EU's requirements, the response was, "Ha no, fudge you." Say that. Ha no, fudge you.
So just like the constitutional carry wave that is absolutely positively sweeping the nation right now, it will be interesting to see how, if relaxing of the gun laws in Europe, specifically Eastern Europe, will start sweeping through, because let's be honest, it makes a lot of sense. And at the same time, that also starts sweeping stuff out I mean, especially in Lithuania, they're starting to issue automatic weapons to people that I assume are like licensed gun people, just from all the ways that they've listed them, is that these people are probably bona fide gun owners, if you will. But they start issuing all these automatic weapons to people, which is just absolutely would get people clutching their pearls here. And watch, do you think that their violent crime rate's going to go up?
I don't think so.
Yeah, statistically speaking, based on what we've seen in, Vermont has almost always had one of the lowest violent crime rates per capita in the country.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a reason it was called Vermont carry until Alaska joined.
Yep.
Alaska's crime rate, I think, stayed pretty much the same. There's a little fluctuation.
I believe the only instance where a gun law was relaxed and crime went up was in Missouri, when they got rid of their, I believe it was they had like an assault weapon purchase permit or something. It was like a Jim Crow law. Okay. And it was one of those ones where essentially
like the one that North Carolina decided to keep after all.
Yeah, very, very similar, if I remember correctly. And essentially, it meant that you would go into the police station and you would talk to the police and get a permit that was essentially a coupon that you would then turn in at the gun store to verify that you had cleared buying an assault weapon or a handgun with the police.
That's actually very similar to how the New York pistol license scheme.
Yes,
is you get a coupon.
Yeah, but then the kicker of that was violent crime went up because this law was repealed right in the middle of the Ferguson riots.
Yeah, and that's one of the other things that I've seen in a lot of the statistics. I mean, John Lott has written a number of articles on this, is that if the crime rate was going down, the law changes to be more permissive, the crime rate continues to go down. Mm-hmm. If the crime rate was going up and a law is passed making it more restrictive, the crime rate continues to go up. That there doesn't seem to be any causation or even much correlation.
Mm-hmm.
And I did take a look at the link to the Weird World Candlelight Vigil page. I like the guy with the law tube with the tea light.
Yeah, that's an M87 57 millimeter recoilless.
Oh, it looked like the end of a Law rocket.
Yeah, well, no, you can see the rifling on it. Laws are smoothbore.
I didn't zoom in on the picture, but yes, now you're right. I can see that.
Yep, that's Wally, who Aaron met in Arizona.
Mm-hmm.
That's feckin' awesome, bud.
Yeah, it was. It's a pretty sweet gun. He had it set up at it was demilled, so it was cross drilled and all that, but it was still substantial enough that it could handle the a 30-06 adapter. Essentially, it was a little rocket that you would screw into the back,
mm-hmm.
and it had a 30-06 cartridge and like a 4-inch barrel on it.
It was like a chamber adapter.
Exactly. And so you'd fire it, the bullet would go down range, and I don't know exactly how the 0 point was different, because I imagine it'd be going a lot faster. But
Mhm.
essentially it would free bore through most of that, and you'd shoot that thing, and fire would shoot out the back of it. So like a substantial amount would
Well, it's
shoot
a
out the back of
recoilless
it.
rifle, so
Yeah, well, but still, even 30-06 was enough to really make an impressive fire show out the back end.
well,
And
it's probably got a really large expansion chamber, so
Yeah.
the powder is burning very inefficiently and generating that gas.
and then the whole thing would just go.
Now I know, not personally, but I know a guy from one of the Militaria websites that I used to hang out on. He remilled I think it was the 57 millimeter recoilless rifle,
Mhm.
but he remilled it to full function.
Yep.
And so he was constantly hunting down the recoilless rifle Venturi cases,
Mm-hmm.
and he had a whole not a how-to, but a whole here's what I had to do, because he found a couple that had been turned into lamps. A couple of the recoilless rifle shell cases with all the holes in them that had been turned into lamps.
Mm-hmm.
And he bought them at a yard sale and then went through the process of, well, getting the lamp guts out and then making them back into usable recoilless rifle shells.
Nice.
It was hysterical stuff. But yeah,
No.
but then he was able to fire it with, I think he turned zinc or brass for the projectiles.
Mm-hmm.
So
Well, these
before
ones are
we
neat 'cause
before we change topics, the one bow I want to tie on the Eastern Europe thing is, I think that the one we need to keep an eye on is Poland, because Poland has some very legitimate concerns, and if Poland starts having Ukrainian or Lithuanian carry, that will definitely be the indicator that there is change sweeping at least part of Europe. I mean, I really think that Eastern Europe is going to go this way. Whether or not it affects the rest of Western Europe remains to be seen.
Even if they went with Czech Republic,
Mm-hmm.
they're still more restricted. Carrying guns is allowed on all type of permits besides permits for collecting.
Mm-hmm.
So they do have carry, but it's not as broad, it looks like, as Czechs.
Yeah. But all I'm saying is wait and see what Poland does, because Poland has a border not only with Ukraine, but Belarus. Poland is sweating.
And also, may I add that that Poland is also a member of the EU, which further makes things interesting.
Yeah. One of the ones that I'm disappointed with, particularly in this group of countries, is Romania. Everyone remember what a Romanian Christmas is?
Oh, yes. Black humor is best humor.
Yeah, well, not everyone gets it.
Yeah, but Ceausescu sure did.
Yeah, so that's basically in what year was that?
It was the 80s, wasn't it?
89? 89, yeah. The Romanian Revolution of 89 was when Romania freed themselves from the Soviet Party by executing the Moscow-placed tyrant that was ruling over them.
And his wife.
And his wife, just for
yes.
good measure. Yeah.
Yeah. And then they put in really high-speed internet over the following, decades. If you've seen the meme with Bernie Sanders talking about how come Romania has better internet than most of the United States, and the Romanian replies, because we killed the communist ruler in 89. But that is referred to as a Romanian Christmas, is when they executed the tyrant.
Yep. And I mean, yeah, they were full on. Like, I mean, I used to own a Wasser 10, and I do still own a Romanian SKS. Like, they were full communist bloc.
Well, if I remember correctly, Romania, they had an earlier attempt at breaking away in, I think, the 50s.
Mm-hmm.
That the Soviets ruthlessly crushed, as in tanks in the streets.
So yeah, it will be interesting to see again, especially if EU nations start saying no, screw you because of course many nations that had somewhat reasonable gun laws had to back their gun laws down a little bit because the EU required some base standards for gun ownership. And so, certain nations like, I believe Liechtenstein was actually fairly free about issuing guns. And they created a bunch of restricted stuff for the sake of fitting in with the EU. But it'll be interesting to say no, Russia wants to turn us all into Soviet Union. So no, we'll carry AKs and we'll carry ARs and full auto stuff.
Yeah.
G36s. Let's be honest. Euros love that G36.
It's a cool looking gun, but it has some issues.
Yep.
Shall we just segue into the weird guns being used in Ukraine right now?
Oh yeah, that's a good one to go for. David, you put those in, didn't you?
Yes, I did, because I've been seeing these various reports of stuff that is being just dragged out. Now, one of the things I did read in one of the articles is that while it was part of the Soviet Union, a large number of the older weapons were actually stored in Ukraine. It was a storage depot for obsolete or obsolescent arms that they didn't want to get rid of. So many more people in the collecting community are familiar with the caves in the Ural Mountains, where the Russians have basically stored every gun they've ever had in their possession. Mm-hmm. Well, Ukraine apparently had a lot of that as well, and they're coming out to play. So it's not just AK-74s, AK-47s, AKMs, etc. It's just all sorts of stuff. I mean, there's a photo of a Russian soldier with a Stechkin automatic pistol. And I do not mean semi-automatic. I mean, it is an automatic pistol.
Yeah.
It's a relatively slow-firing full-auto handgun.
It's essentially a gigantic Makarov pistol that has a giggle switch.
More or less. But, I'm sure a lot of people have seen pictures on the Ukrainian or separatist side with the Mosin Nagants with the PSU sniper scopes on. Or PU scope. PSU?
PU.
Whatever. Yeah, with the sniper scopes on them.
Yep.
But the one that really just made me chuckle was the DP-27s, the Degtyarev with the big pan magazine on top of the receiver.
Yep. Actually, the one that I liked the best was the Maxim with the red dot mounted on it.
Yeah, there was actually dual Maxim. It's two of them side by side. But there's also pictures of a PTRS-41.
Which one's that one?
That is the anti-tank rifle that's like a giant SKS.
Oh, yes. Yeah, Simonov created that one. Yes. And it's like 14.5 millimeter.
It's basically the Russian equivalent of 50 BMG.
No.
That's the bigger one. It's the bigger one.
Yeah, if I'm correct. Yeah, the Russian 50 BMG is like $12.99 or something like that.
It's basically the same. It's a 51 caliber bullet in a slightly longer case.
Yeah. But this one uses like it's like the Russian version of like 55 boys.
Yeah. It's
I know what you meant, but it came out wrong.
I mean, it's
not 72 virgins, it's 55 boys.
I love seeing the old catalogs that say boys rifle, and it's this gigantic anti-tank bolt action.
Yep. Meanwhile, I have up on the wall next to me a true boys rifle. It's a single shot 22 with a reduced size stock.
Reduced size what?
Stock.
Okay.
Shoulder stock.
Wanted to make sure it wasn't anything else that ended in that particular sound.
Sock?
Yes, that's exactly what I meant.
Block?
So I just looked it up. The cartridge that the PTRS and PTRD rifles
14.5?
14.5 by 114 millimeter. It's not
small.
It is. It is a 58. It's the 58.6 caliber.
Yeah.
It's,
And of course, then there's the Ukrainian technicals.
Yes,
Yes.
I was going to mention those.
Yeah, my favorite is the BMW 6 series with a heavy machine gun mounted where the trunk was facing to the rear, and that's just going to rip that thing apart if they do a long burst. It's going to rip the connections right out of that.
I don't know. Could be afterburners.
Yeah, I was going to say it's going to go faster until it rips loose the mountings.
I did that in
also-
GTA Vice City.
Yeah, there's a picture of, the caption says, Ukrainian servicemen of the 28th Mechanized Brigade with a Dishka heavy machine gun mounted on a pickup truck.
Yeah.
That's what fires the Russian equivalent of the 50 cal.
Yes.
And
a little bit more juice to it, but it's close
Yeah.
enough for government work.
Yeah, but there's also the usual stuff, AKs, ARs, FNCs, M240s.
Cute blondes with Molotovs.
Cute blondes with Molotovs, yes.
BZ-59s.
And the thing is, it's not just on the Ukrainian side that weird stuff is showing up. There was a prototype T-80 tank that the Russians pulled out that, as far as anybody is aware, there was only one of those built.
And it was in a museum or something.
Yeah, and I mean, it's now smoldering rubble on the side of the road, thanks to the Ukrainians.
I think it's probably stopped smoldering by.
Well, by now it's probably stopped smoldering, but
there's a video, like a TikTok video of I think it's a Ukrainian soldier with a PPS-43 that he refers to as it's like taking Grandpa for a walk. But in the show notes, I put in 2 links. Brandon Herrera did 2 videos on the weird guns being used in Ukraine right now.
Yes.
And, I mean, the bits that he puts up are funny, but his commentary, I mean, he is extremely knowledgeable about anything AK.
Yeah.
I mean, that's his business.
And he's pretty darn knowledgeable on anything Eastern Bloc as well.
Yes, I was going to end on that, but and only slightly less with just stuff from the East. But his commentary is just, it's wry and snarky and really funny. So I definitely recommend checking those out. And his other videos are, well, he just put up a video today or yesterday. He is working on making a 50 BMG AK.
Yeah, he just put up that video today.
Oh, I wasn't sure if it was today or yesterday because it's been kind of blurry.
Yeah, that's the entire point about that song at the end. Because someone heard he was making it, and so they made that song, and so he's the Papa Kalash being referred to in the lyrics.
Yeah, he's been working on it for a few years because it's not a simple project.
No.
I mean, anybody who has been involved in the firearms industry in any way knows prototypes never work right for a while. Yeah. But it's just some of the stuff that they're digging up. There was one photo, and I don't have confirmation of it, but in the photo, it's clearly an STG-44 that claims to was seen in Ukraine.
Well, there.
I don't know where they would get 7.92 by 33 ammo for it, but okay.
Digging spam cans in the field.
Well, there was a joke about several Eastern European countries is that oiled their gardens. But speaking of old guns, can I do a non sequitur?
Sure.
I accidentally bought a gun.
Oh no!
Did it follow you home?
This time?
I put a silly lowball bid. It's like, oh come on, you know it's almost to that price already, and I'll just put this bid in. I'll put it in the show notes.
What did you do, David?
Okay, what is one of my favorite categories of guns?
Mouse guns.
1911s and revolvers.
Okay, what type of revolvers? What brand?
Smith & Wesson.
Colts.
Shut your whore mouth. Colt revolvers are things of beauty and works of art until they go out of tune. But no, I accidentally bought a Smith & Wesson 32 hand ejector model of 1903
Nice.
for a really just, how did I get that?
You're
Because
gonna
like I
have
said,
to.
I put in a lowball bid,
Yeah, you're gonna have to tell us how lowball. Otherwise, we won't be impressed.
125.
Good God, man!
Hells yeah.
Okay, when I put that bid on, the high bid at that time was 90, and there were 13 bids. So I just tossed it in so I could keep track of it. And then I get the email, you won! What now?
And unlike Oddball's accidental gun purchases, you will not have Aaron say, "Why would you want that more than money?"
I mean, the finish is worn. One of the plastic grips does have a chip out of it, but until I get a hold of it and take a look at the insides, and Weer'd, I will make sure to post a picture of the internal mechanism to make you sweat.
Oh. Oh. I mean, just don't of sweat. Every time I watch someone take the side plate off a revolver, like, why would you do that? Don't hear there be dragons.
Well, and that's one of my, and that's pretty much my response to people that tell me, "Oh no, you don't want a Chiappa Rhino. The internals are like a freaking clock." And you see, have you seen the inside of a revolver?
Yeah.
Any of them?
But there's a picture of the right side plate and the 4 screws on the side plate holding it in, and the slots on the screws do not look buggered up. And even though there's some pitting and finish wear, you can still barely see the line where the side plate joins the front. Those are both really good signs to me, because it means someone wasn't in there with whatever intent. So I'm not sorry at all. I'm just a little confused.
And in my defense, one of my accidental gun purchases was an IBM make M1 carbine. So that David keeps thinking about taking off with every time he's over here.
Oh no, I would never do that. I would find something that you would want more than the IBM, and I would make an honest trade. But the cool thing is it comes with an old leather holster that looks like it could be a Hunter, or I forget the other brand name. Oh, actually, can I zoom in enough? Yes, I think it might be actually brand holster, because there are a couple of snaps on it for the retention strap, and the logo is on it, and just enough light is reflecting off it to make it unreadable. But I will soon have a new Smith & Wesson revolver in there.
Well,
So that's my
fun.
exciting story.
Yes.
I went to a gun show in Florida and bought nothing.
Well, your wife was with you.
Yeah, but my money. So as long as I don't whine about how my money problems.
I think that was the same day that I went to a gun show and I bought a knife and was scared away from any of the guns there.
Now, wait. You didn't just buy a knife. How were you greeted when you got to the knife deal?
Oh, the woman of the couple that runs the knife table came around the table and gave me a hug.
Because all their kids are through college and have good paying jobs thanks to you.
And really good teeth.
See, you got the knife equivalent of Norm.
Yes.
Yes.
That's exactly it. Now, I have been to this gun show with Oddball, and I have seen the smile greeting. She didn't come around and give you a hug when I was with you, but she recognized you, and they both greeted you with big smiles.
Yes.
Because a fool and his money are soon depart.
Well, Oddball also, I believe on that visit, you also explained something about one of their knives that they did.
Oh, yes. In fact, the knife that I bought from them, I showed them how to open it.
Puzzle
Well,
knife?
there.
Front flipper. So instead of so I think everybody's aware of flipper knives where you have this section sticking out the spine of the handle that you push down and it flips the blade out. A front flipper that section is actually along the spine of the edge of the blade. And you kind of have to flip it over with your thumb. And it's
So
once
it's not the little knob that's attached near the spine.
right. So think about, usually it's about where on a liner lock where the part of the blade that interfaces with the pin in the frame,
Right.
that will be exaggerated a bit, and there'll be some gimping on it, so that
Oh, I'm sorry, there'll be some what on it?
there'll be some jimping on it.
Chipping?
We heard that.
Did you say gimping?
That's the first thing he said, yes.
The Gibbs sleeping.
But
If you're going to use strange jargon, you need to
But
there'll be some texturing on it.
Thank you. I
But
hadn't heard that referred to as gimping. Dimpling, yes.
jimping.
Jimping.
Yeah.
So it's a
Cuts in.
it's a hard G or a soft G?
It's a
Jimping!
like the graphic interchange format. A hard G or a
Gimping.
soft G?
That's
yes,
Yeah,
it's
but it's
pronounced
pronounced
exactly
jimping.
like that.
Have you seen? Wait a second. I'm sorry. Have you seen the meme about the historical pronunciation?
Yes.
I don't know if the others have, so I am going to toss it in there. The good news, we finally have solid confirmation on how GIF is pronounced. The bad news, the Old English word GIF is pronounced YIF.
I remember making that joke a while ago.
yes.
Yes, but this is someone who actually did the research, and it's not a joke.
Mm-hmm.
And the last quote is, "This is the language equivalent of King Solomon suggesting cutting the baby in half."
Yep. So you can pronounce it. You can agree to pronounce it GIF. You can agree to pronounce it JIF, or we're going to be pronouncing it YIF.
I still like Jafe.
I do too.
Jafe and May May.
JAFE, it's a much classier sound than either of the others.
I wasn't going for class. I was just going for offending everyone.
But yeah,
Pictures I can do.
yeah. This is not the knife that I bought from them, but this is a
No.
good picture of a front flipper. And yes, cuts in metal for the purpose of making it easier to grasp, or for traction. That is called jimping. And the idea is you hit it with with your thumb, and you kind of roll your thumb over the top of the handle of the knife, and that's how you deploy the knife. It's a fast way to deploy a knife one-handed after you get the hang of it, but especially with depending on how pronounced that little nub is, it can be a little tricky.
Now, back to jimping for a moment. I was familiar with that term once I typed it out and saw the spelling, but I didn't realize that was for traction. I had always seen that term used for the decorative cuts on the back of a knife.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
So-
I mean, they're both decorative and functional.
Mhm.
Right, but I'd not seen it for the functional purpose, but like on the back of a Scottish shindu, there's
Yeah.
the file work on the back, those cuts called jimping, and obviously it's not to get the knife open.
Right.
No, but it's to allow you to place your hand on the spine of the blade when you're cutting to choke up on it and get finer control.
It's a shindu. You're just grabbing it like an ice pick and stuffing it into the sesnash.
That's true.
I mean, yes, and
Yeah, but you also
You don't need to choke up and get finer control. You
I
just,
mean, they
just
also
kick the
use
bloody
them for
bastard.
eating. They didn't just kill their enemies. They would occasionally carve off a joint of meat.
that's what the dirk was for.
That's true.
really
But-
big chunks of meat.
That's the
All right.
claymore was for.
All right, since we have squirreled off into that, let us finish out the topics, and then we can all go home.
I am home.
I live here.
I mean, I
Yes.
understand. You know what I mean, figuratively. I shall release you from your duties. So
I
we've got
already went duty.
we've got some bad news and some news. So
Yeah.
and there's a lighter side to it. Washington has signed a bill into law that prohibits
Washington
high-capacity
State.
magazine.
We need to point out Washington State, not Washington D.C.
Correct.
Yes, that's important.
Yes. And and I believe this is like zero grandfathering. If your magazine holds more than 10 rounds, you need to get it the hell out of the state, destroy it, or turn it into the police. But the good news is that while this law was working its way through the annals of it's Salem, Oregon. What's the capital? Is Seattle the capital of Washington?
Yes.
No.
But as this is
No, it's
It's
not.
Olympia.
It's not
Olympia.
it might as well be.
And I
Yeah.
think, is it Eugene, Oregon?
Salem, Oregon's the capital.
I don't know where Eugene came from.
There is Eugene, Oregon, so it came
Yeah.
from Oregon.
Okay, I just knew that it was in Portland.
Yes. But essentially, in Washington, as it was working its way to the governor's desk, the Second Amendment Foundation, which is of course also based in Washington, has already drafted up a lawsuit, and so they're getting ready to fire this off very, very soon, possibly by the time you guys hear this. So it will be challenged in court. We'll see what happens
The
with
day
it.
it's signed.
Yeah.
Well, I wish them luck. I hope they
Yeah.
succeed.
I don't have much hope
Yeah.
in state court, and again, I have the feeling if it got up to the Supreme Court, they'd give it a good leaving.
Hmm.
But I thought that it was amended to include grandfather.
Well, I mean, honestly, there is the tricky thing of how do you tell if a magazine has been grandfathered? It is old enough.
Right.
If it's a magazine that's still in production, because
Yeah, and that's the. Why is a rifle barrel length maximum 16 inches?
oh
It's
yeah,
the same.
yeah, it's
It's just foolishness by people who don't understand technology.
yeah, and yeah, don't make that. Don't think that means that I think that there is anything but stupidity involved.
Oh no,
in banning
trust
capacity.
me. I think we're fairly parallel in our opinion of these laws.
I mean that's why I own as many stupid drum mags as I do.
Well, that and they're fun.
Because every time somebody starts talking about them, I get an urge. Talking about banning high capacity magazines, I get an urge to go find the dumbest drum magazine I can find, which is why I have a drum magazine for my High Point and my Bursa 380.
Do you have one for your Set Me?
I do not.
How different is the Set Me mags from a G3 mag?
Not.
Okay, because I know they make G3 drums.
And I have a drum magazine for my P365.
Do you also have one for one of your Bursas?
Yeah, my Bursa 380.
Oh, the 380, okay. So it says in the law, no person in this state shall manufacture, import, distribute, sell, or offer for sale any large capacity magazine except as authorized in this section. Does not apply to any of the following. Sale to any branch armed forces, of course. Dealer properly licensed under federal and state law for the purpose of sale to or the state of Washington, or employees for law enforcement purposes. So I'm seeing sale. I'm not seeing ownership, distribution, selling, offering for sale, or facilitating the sale, distribution, or transfer of.
So it might be one of those simple like situation of the when Grandpa dies, his high capacity magazine needs to go into the coffin with him.
Right, because I'm looking through the law right now. I found the Senate bill as passed, and transfer means the intended delivery of a firearm to another person without consideration of promise of payment. Okay, so but I'm not seeing anything that specifically says possession. But I am not a lawyer. It would be interesting to get Ben Blatt's opinion on this as well. I would very much enjoy if he could be a regular guest for legal.
I will reach out to him.
Please do.
So
So because I remember, I think it was Brownells had a deal that you could buy magazines. They're Brownells brand AR-15, 20, and 30 round aluminum magazines. You could purchase them for shipment to Washington. So people all over the country could buy those magazines and have them sent to an adoptive home in Washington State.
I seem to recall that Magpul did something very similar for, I think it was California.
Yes,
Colorado for sure.
Or maybe it was
Well, yeah.
Colorado, but yeah, it was some sort of,
It was
airlift. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, with California, when California had that, Judge Benitez
true. Yep.
had that, no, this isn't right. We're putting this law on hold. And I think they finally determined that like over 1 million magazines appeared in the state within the 6 days.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, when Colorado passed their law, and Magpul said, if you pass this law, we're moving out of the state. So they passed the law and Magpul moved out of the state.
And then they were all, why are you leaving?
Yep.
Exactly. Oh, don't worry. We'll make up the tax revenue from pot sales. Seriously, that was what legislators said.
Yeah, if only there was an infrastructure where one could buy pot without having to pay any taxes that already existed.
But Magpul, they had a big event in Colorado right before the law went into effect, and they were dumping boxes of magazines out of helicopters.
Mm-hmm.
They flew a helicopter into this arena, and they were just throwing boxes of magazines out.
Actually, speaking of that, I just looked it up, and the number of states where marijuana is legalized, 18.
Mm-hmm.
Now compare that to the number of states that constitutional carry is, or some form of permitless carry.
24. And from that article on Washington State's new law, the number of states that have a magazine capacity prohibition, 9.
Mm.
So what is more normal?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Stop it.
And
Stop
I don't know if that
what?
went through.
little bit. What was it? An auto start video?
Yes,
Okay.
I clicked on the link to the article about the Washington bill. But yeah, when the law goes into effect July 1st, Washington will be among 9 other states who have restricted magazine capacity. So 9 states have restricted capacity. 24 states have allowed you to carry a handgun without a permit.
And I believe that 24 is not including Georgia because the governor hasn't signed it yet.
Right. Yeah, it's 24, not counting Georgia. When Georgia's going, and I was actually just listening to episode 193, where Aaron and Weer'd were discussing what type of political grandstanding the governor was going to do for the signature.
Right.
And I really hope for the Georgians' sake he doesn't delay it until 4th.
Yeah, well, like I said, I think that's about the latest he can delay it without doing damage to the people he's supposed to be courting.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I can. When is another?
You're only coming through in chunks.
I'll try to get more fiber. Okay, no. I was thinking I was thinking not Bill of Rights Day, which is December 15th, but there was another holiday or not holiday, but event day along those lines, which I thought was in April. But I'm drawing a complete blank, so it may not be anything real. Wow. But maybe he's going to sign it on April 15th. Make that less poisonous a day.
That would be interesting.
Now,
And then he should sign it and say, and if you capture any Russian armored vehicles, you don't have to claim them on your taxes. I would love to see some state just kind of tack that on to some law. I mean, specifically, if you capture any Russian armored vehicles.
mm-hmm.
Although I would hate to think somebody going to a private collection and trying to steal.
It's only been to the church and the store.
Oh, it's the meme of So, where is your position on the Second Amendment? And it shows an armored vehicle parked next to a Waffle House.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's its natural habitat.
Somebody once asked me where I stood on gun control, and my response was something along the lines of that I think that any adult should be able to go and buy a belt-fed machine gun with a silencer at the hardware store.
Mm-hmm.
They ended the conversation immediately.
Yeah.
Of course, I say that here in Tennessee, and I get smiles more often than not.
Yes.
New York, I think I scared.
Yeah. Well, New Yorkers think that if suddenly people are allowed to own guns without restrictions, it's a horrible social experiment, and who knows what will happen.
New York is a horrible social experiment.
Yes.
Well, New York City. As I pointed out to people, if you remove the 5 boroughs of New York, actually 4, because Richmond, Staten Island is very conservative. If you remove the 4 boroughs of New York, Rockland and Westchester counties, New York would become one of the most red states in the country.
Oh yeah, I mean it is. I mean, central New York is nearly indistinguishable from Vermont that it borders.
That's eastern New York, Hudson Valley region.
Mm-hmm.
Central New York is bordering Pennsylvania.
Yeah, Pennsylvania.
Yes. And then basically everything north of I-87 is, not counting Rochester, Buffalo, and Plattsburgh, which, oddly enough, are 3 of the places where state universities are located. I'm sure that's just a coincidence. But anyway, so the Washington bill, not good. As I said, I did not see anything banning possession, just purchase or sale. So if that's the case and the law is not going into effect, and I'm not clicking on that link again, if that law isn't going into effect until I think it's at June 1st, then that's a lot of time for the residents of Washington to buy as many standard capacity magazines as they can. If I'm reading that correctly.
Mm-hmm.
And I was actually going to buy some more magazines for some of my firearms, and I'm going to pause.
Yep.
Because if my reading is correct and they are going to be buying them in large quantity, I do not want to interfere.
Well, groups like Brownells and Midway USA, I know for the various states, such as when California had that brief, magazine hiatus, and Colorado just before the ban went through, they actually had like expedited shipping and right of way. So like they would satisfy all orders that were coming from the area under attack first before free staters would get their stuff.
Here it is. I'll put the link in the show notes. Brownells announces mag dump for Washington State.
Good for them.
In response to the standard capacity magazine ban passed in Washington State, Brownells will donate $2 for every aluminum Brownells AR-15 magazine sold to the Washington-based Second Amendment Foundation. Oh, so I should be buying these magazines. Okay. So
twist my arm.
Yeah. So everybody who can, sorry, Weer'd, should go because it's the 30-round aluminum gray, 30-round aluminum desert tan magazines. Like I said, I'll put this link in the show notes so everyone can see. And I mean, it's a nice thing because Brownells may not be sure exactly what the law covers, and they don't want to dump a whole bunch of magazines in the state and then have the people have to. There that is. So I guess I have to buy some more magazines. Oh, you can buy them in singles, 10 packs, or 100 packs. So the 100 pack is $1,400 for 100 of their aluminum gray magazines, or $15 a piece.
It's not bad.
$150 for 10 of them. So I mean, there's not that much of. When you get 100 of them, there's a quantity discount, but it's $14.99 for 1 or $149.99 for 10, which actually makes it a better deal to buy.
So Weer'd. Are we gonna touch on this very last piece, or are we gonna skip it?
Yeah. Let's hit this very last. I mean, because it's quick, because there's not a whole lot to talk about. I mean, the First up, I will note that that patrons of the show are listening to this on April 1st, and you will notice that I am not playing any stupid games because I don't want to. But this will be going up in April, and according to all accounts, the ATF is right now taking comments and will be issuing a ruling on 80% firearm frames. And it will be interesting to see where this goes. The downside is this is the ATF. One of the things when Biden was talking about gun control early on in his presidency, he was talking about going after quote unquote ghost guns. And if he was going to do it,
ooh, spooky.
yeah, if he was going to, and I would have gotten away with it too if it wasn't for you meddling kids. But if it was if it went through Congress, if Congress tried to ban ghost guns, 80% lowers, those sort of things, that could be actually a major boon to us because 80% is actually a BS term. There's no such.
Yeah, there's no legal specification for when it is or is not.
Yeah, it is very much an approximation. There is no 81%. Oh, it's a firearm. There is no 79%. Oh, it's perfectly safe. You have to do an extra step. Whatever. No, there's no nothing. Essentially, a company makes a quote unquote 80% lower, and they submit it. In some cases, they don't, which has led to some problems, but they submit it to the ATF and say, we think this is not a gun. What do you think? And the ATF will either say yes or no. And there's been
now with the AR-15 80% lowers, which is one of the two most common ones, is the fire control pocket and pin positions are not drilled out. So literally everything above the trigger guard is a solid block of metal. So there's no way to put a trigger in it. There's no way to fire it. And even if somehow you manage to attach it to an upper receiver, the bolt wouldn't be in it because the bolt wouldn't have a pass-through.
Although they've already played some silly games with that, with the, was it Polymer 80 that was selling the
0% lower?
80%, no, the 80% AR in a box kit?
Yes. Yeah, you can buy the lower and you can buy the jigs, but you had to buy them separately.
No, it wasn't even that. It was that, if you put all the parts for the gun in a box and it's an 80% lower, then that's a no-no.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So you needed to buy the upper and the butt stock and the pistol grip and all of that separately.
You could buy everything except.
Sorry, it was the P80. It was the Polymer 80 Glocks.
Yes.
Yeah.
The Glock in a box that had here's the 80% grip that is a solid chunk of plastic.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, yes, you can sell all those individually, but if you put them all in the same box, that's a firearm.
Yeah, magically it's a gun. Yeah, and according to the article with the link in the show notes, if the rule goes through as expected, all 80% firearm frames and receivers sold would require a serial number and be considered a firearm in the eyes of the ATF. The ones currently in the hands of the public would not require a serial number unless the firearm is transferred by a federal firearms licensee or brought into a gunsmith for work.
Right, which, if it's brought to a gunsmith for work or transferred by a dealer, then it has to be serialized anyways.
Yeah. There's no way to enter it into the bound. Actually, if it was a pre-68 firearm and never had a serial number, that just goes into the bound book as is with no serial number.
Okay. Well, yeah.
But I don't know if that applies to anything beyond 68 because depending on who you call it, ATF.
Yeah, I believe not. I haven't dove too deep.
Yeah, I don't think it applies to anything other than pre-68 guns either.
Yeah. And of course, this also ties in nicely to my segment from last week over why would somebody possibly want to not broadcast their identity when dealing with printing 3D printed firearms?
Rest in peace, Jay Stark.
Right.
Tragic loss for the. It's been months, but it's still reverberating. For those who don't know, Jay Stark was a German citizen, a young man, who was one of the most instrumental in getting the 3D firearms community not normalized, but as close to normalized as we are. And he worked very hard to keep his identity a secret because he was a German citizen. And somehow his identity was discovered and he was grabbed off the street, arrested. His apartment was ransacked by law enforcement. He was questioned in depth. They had nothing on him. So they released him, and a couple of days later, he died from a heart attack. Now, according to his family, he did have a heart condition, but I'm sure that kind of stress didn't.
Right. And I believe I don't know if he designed the whole thing or was instrumental in designing the FGC-9, which is a fully printable semi-auto 9mm that
takes Glock magazines. Of course, it does.
Yeah, and of course you can print Glock mags.
Yep. Yes, and the just in case you're wondering, I think it was Jay Stark and Ivan the Troll.
Yeah,
that did that, and the name FGC-9 stands for Fudge Gun Control 9. But one of the other things from the article that was linked in the show notes about this, homemade suppressors will take a hit under the proposed rules. The tube itself will become the suppressor. The ATF has recently... My understanding was that was already the case. That if you are Form 1ing a suppressor, you have to get the tube engraved before you can put it all together.
Of course,
that was my understanding as well.
That also touches on some silly games that the ATF has been playing recently with Form 1 suppressors.
Well, that's what it says. The ATF has recently cracked down on Form 1 silencers. The government law enforcement agency paused 3,000 e-form submissions. Out of those 3,000 submissions, 850 were denied by the ATF. The agency said the builder used parts that are already silencers, which in some cases was a piece of unthreaded, uncut, foot-long metal tubing.
Right, and I've seen reports that the ATF is now saying, oh, you want to do a Form 1 silencer? Okay, cool. Provide pictures of
the parts you'll be using.
The stuff that you'll be using. So
yes, I've seen copies of that letter.
Which a lot of people have asserted, oh, they're trying to get us to entrap ourselves for constructive possession.
And they're probably not wrong, because if the ATF is saying that this tube that you haven't assembled yet is the suppressor, the agency said the builder used parts that are already silencers, and they specifically referenced the tube in one case, or at least one case. So if you have a picture of the tube, the baffles, and the end caps, these are the parts that I'm using, oh, you already have a suppressor.
Yeah, well, and in fairness, if you have the tube, end caps, and baffles, yes, you have a suppressor.
Well, when you buy the parts, and a friend of the show who has done this could tell us, or was in the process of doing this, I believe.
Yes.
When you buy those parts, you get the tube, you get the baffles, you get the end caps, but the end caps are not drilled.
Right, and
if you screwed them on, you'd have a closed-end tube.
Right, and further, it used to be that folks that were cautious about making sure that they were following the law to the letter would obtain the Form 1 and then obtain the parts.
Right, because that just makes sense.
Right.
I mean, I know a couple of folks who they would get the baffles and the end caps, and the end caps would be solid, but they wouldn't order the tube until they got their Form 1 back, and they would have the seller engrave the tube for them.
Right. And you know, it's the whole thing of, and just to show the silliness of the NFA, really, honestly, all you need for a suppressor is you can get a tube and just shove a bunch of steel wool in it and attach it to the end of the barrel, and ta-da, you have a suppressor.
Yeah, the process is the punishment. One of the other things you can make into a suppressor is a plastic bottle filled with polyfill from pillows and taped to the gun muzzle.
Yep.
Only good for 1 or 2 shots.
Yeah,
but it's going to suppress.
Or an oil filter. Again, these aren't the best suppressors on the market.
Did you see?
But they work.
I think it was SilencerCo put up a video where they tested the potato suppressor.
Yes.
Yes.
And it knocked 30 decibels off. I mean, it was a good baking-sized russet potato. And it
was only good for 1 shot.
Well, there was potato everywhere on the range. It was hysterical. But they actually they screwed an adapter to the end of the potato so that it could just screw onto the muzzle.
Yes.
And then they took a shot without it and registered the decibels. And they took a shot with it, and it knocked like 30 decibels off.
Yeah.
That is a lot of reduction. That's better than some suppressors.
Especially since I believe it was a revolver, wasn't it?
No, not for the potato.
I don't know why I thought it was. I could have sworn I remembered.
They have done other videos where they did it with revolvers.
Yeah.
All right.
Which also gives you a use for those breaching muzzle.
Just jam it into the potato.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Delicious.
I will find that video and I will link it to it in the show notes.
Excellent. Well, there. So we will see what happens. I mean, the good news is that they might step on their wieners and end up defining 80% guns in order to ban them, and which will clearly get us an idea where we can very, very clearly using their instructions create a 79% gun.
Mm-hmm.
And again, comply with the law. They call it a loophole, but it's just simply compliance.
Yep.
And because I mean, the way anti-gun laws are is saying that you must stop when the light turns red, but then when the light turns green, suddenly it's a loophole and everyone's going again.
Yeah.
Right. And again, with all of these, it's okay, if I really wanted to, I can go down to Home Depot and pick up the ready-made parts to build a zip gun.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I can
they have
even
the parts in the plumbing section for a shotgun.
Yeah, and they have them cut to the right lengths. You don't even you don't actually have to do anything other than maybe use a dab of glue.
They've added a few more in addition to the potato silencer. They've done the pillow silencer, steel wool, cotton balls, oil filter, mag light, and the Godfather towel.
Did they go the extra step further with the steel wool and use Chore Boy?
I don't know.
I watched the video and I'm trying to remember.
Oh, it looks like they also might have used great stuff in one of them.
I'll just say
plastic water bottles.
I'll just say for the truckers out there, they'll get the Chore Boy. It's sold at just about every truck stop.
Oh yeah,
and it's not for legal reasons.
Shh.
Yeah, right along with those crappy little plastic flowers in glass tubes.
Yep. And apparently tube socks.
Oh, okay.
Those have multiple uses.
Yeah, we'll have to talk. We'll have to talk after. I haven't heard the illicit use of the tube sock.
Yeah.
I thought every boy who went through high school knew the use of the tube sock.
Well, I mean, not that.
Oh God. I was worried that's where you were going, and yes, that's where you went.
That was David making everything awful.
That's not where I was going.
But it's funny.
All right. I think these shenanigans have gone on long enough. So
okay, I did add the SilencerCo steel wool and cotton balls link in there as well.
Awesome. Check the show notes so you can watch the hijinks.
Mm-hmm.
So
and just go to the SilencerCo YouTube channel and just watch more of these. Wow.
Mm-hmm. And I would like to thank our wonderful dais of roundtable people. We have the oddest of balls.
Have fun, folks, and stay safe out there.
We have, he accidentally bought a new gun. David?
I accidentally bought an old gun.
That's right. So it's new to you.
And folks, follow the law, but no further.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, that's self-regulation.
The absolute lovely Erin Paulette.
The prettiest of pretty princesses.
I mean, absolutely. And though I tell my daughter I'm the prettiest princess at the ball, and it makes her so angry.
So you're her dad as part of your...
Yes. And I am Weer'd, and I would like to thank all of our listeners, every last one of you. Thank you so much for listening to our show. But a very special thanks to all our supporters on Patreon. You guys help keep the light on. If you would like to become a patron of the show, go to patreon.com/Assorted Calibers podcast and sign up. That way you can get the early release of the podcast if you want to get it a couple days earlier. There's also blooper reels. There are ACP film tracks, and there's our bonus show called the ACP Mag Dump.
So come and listen to us take a dump.
That's right.
So am I reading this thing or not? Because you kind of read from the script, but you kind of didn't.
Yeah, I mean, you could read or you could not. Whatever you want to do, Aaron. Lady's choice. Are you tired?
I'm not so much tired, but I need to use Lacan.
Okay. Well, the X-rated version. So please remember to rate us on Apple Podcasts, subscribe to us on the platform of your choice, and share the show with your friends, both online and off. I got a blog. It's weirdworld.com. I'm also on Handgun Radio. Aaron, you want to plug your stuff?
No.
Okay. Oddball, you want to plug your stuff?
GunsCarsTech.com. And David writes for Blue Collar Prepping. Thanks to Nate Spencer for our music. Good night.
Good night.
Good night, folks.
Aaron has to pee and I don't. Our bladders are assorted and so's our podcast. Good night, everybody.
Good night.